Okay guys, let's take it where we left off. Let's do the Tao chapter 12 from beautiful Doha. So as usual, I'll start by reading from the classic translation, and then we'll go into Vian Den Groot's interpretation. Chapter 12. The 5 colors make one blind in the eyes. The 5 sounds make one deaf in the ears. The 5 flavors make one tasteless in the mouth. Racing and hunting make one wild in the heart. Goods that are difficult to acquire make one cause damage. Before the sages care for the stomach and not the eyes, this is why they discard the other and take this. It's a very beautiful way of putting it, but it may sound a little bit cryptic. So let's see what Vian Den Groot has to say about this. In fact, how he interprets it, because there's not much of Vian Den Groot's personal taste or opinions. There are a few. So, chapter 12. The inner senses. The only way out is inside. Colors subjugate vision. Sounds subjugate hearing. Flavors subjugate taste. And concepts subjugate the mind. One sees clearly from the inner eye, hears clearly from the inner ear, tastes clearly from digestion, and understands clearly from the center of now. Creation, sky and ocean appear full of objects of distractions and objective creatures. For the subjective mind, prone to concepts and relying on outer senses, thus desires, thus apparent bondage and separation from being and witnessing, feeling out of love. Subject stays empty as the sky and ocean, and their creatures always are by nature centered in now, empty, selfless, mindless, truly alive, being and witnessing in love. Thus desirelessness, thus freedom, thus union with creation and subject, always allowing being and non-being with equanimity, alive in emptiness and in creation. I'll still go through chapter 13 as well. Chapter 13. The false identity of separation. All is one and one is whole. Hope and fear, success and failure, past and future, good and bad, are all hollow concepts generated by the subjective mind on the premise of separation from being and witnessing. One's true self is the only subject of all objects in creation and life. Only one able to be and witness in truth and silence, to love now. Devoid of object or life, the mind's hollow concepts are ill-conceived. Devoid of sense, outside of now, they separate one from the reality of love. I went through chapter 13 because in Vian Den Groot's interpretation or exterpretation, it kind of explains and zeroes in on the core message of the chapter 12. I'll still go through the classic translation of chapter 13. Favor and disgrace make one fearful. The greatest misfortune is the self. What does favor and disgrace make one fearful mean? Favor is high, disgrace is low. Having it makes one fearful of losing it. Losing it makes one fearful. This is favor and disgrace make one fearful. Both favor and disgrace make one fearful. What does the greatest misfortune is the self mean? The reason I have great misfortune is that I have the self. If I have no self, what misfortune do I have? So one who values the self as the world can be given the world. One who loves the self as the world can be entrusted with the world. So essentially, it's really now the crux of the matter about the narrative, the ego narrative, the concepts, what is desirable, what is not desirable, instead of simply experiencing life and being and witnessing life in silence. So it might be difficult to appreciate the silence while I'm speaking, but we are talking here of the silence of the mind, not necessarily the silence of the world. The only silent world is the dead world. So let's go back to Vian Den Groot's interpretation and let me clarify it even more. So, the title is important already, the inner senses. The only way out is inside. But let's not misunderstand this to mean that we have to block our senses or to reject the external world, the material world. It really points out to the fact that as egos, or as incarnated souls and spirits, we tend to overweight the importance of our senses and of the external material world and how we interact with it, our place in it. So it's a natural mechanism of the ego to, as a tool, as a GPS kind of tool to help us navigate the material world, our mind simplifies, simulates the world in a very simplistic way with good, bad coding as a defensive mechanism to avoid pain and suffering. However, the funny part is that most of the time this mechanism causes more pain and suffering, maybe less pain but more suffering than if it was subdued, or than when it is subdued. So Vian Den Groot encourages us to see clearly from the inner eye, hear clearly from the inner ear, taste clearly from digestion, and understand clearly from the center of now. And this is the most important one. So how do you see clearly from the inner eye? This is something that is quite widely accepted now in the 21st century, in the beginning of the 21st century, first quarter. We have all more or less come to accept and to know that we can be deceived by what we see, and the recent developments in AI have helped drive home this idea that, okay, what we see is it's an indication, but we have to take it with a pinch of salt. And so we are encouraged to use our multidimensional inner senses, inner understanding, inner common sense, inner wisdom to estimate whether what we are seeing is true or false, or what we are hearing is true or false. Now, an interesting pointer from Vian Den Groot here: one tastes clearly from digestion. What is the stomach and the digestive system except the inner mouth, the inner taste buds? So yes, some food, junk food in particular, comfort food, can be satisfying to the mouth and sometimes to the throat, but it's probably going to disturb a little bit your stomach and maybe a great deal your intestines. So can you really say it was good food or it was satisfying food if only half of the experience was more or less pleasant? And I know what some of you are thinking right now. Yeah, you are preaching all this, but look, you are smoking cigars. This is bad for your health. Well, number one, I don't inhale the smoke, which we are not supposed to do when smoking cigars. So we are not supposed to inhale the smoke. So I'm basically essentially tasting it with my outer mouth and not ingesting it in my inner, of course, stomach, but not even my lungs. So I'm really smelling it from my outer nose and not affecting my inner nose, which we call the lungs. So just to reassure you, if you were worried I may get sick very soon, I may still, but I doubt it would be for this reason. So creation, sky and ocean, appear full of objects of distractions and objective creatures for the subjective mind, prone to concepts and relying on outer senses. Thus desires, thus apparent bondage and separation from being and witnessing, feeling out of love. So here the classical images: creation, sky and ocean. So for example, in the ocean when we look at the ocean, we don't look at the ocean. Usually we look at different waves, or we start thinking about the fishes inside, or the octopus, or the seashells, or we start thinking of the beach, or we start thinking of which wave is the biggest, which wave is the smallest, which one is coming faster, which one is coming slower. All these multitudes of conceptual extrapolations and speculations, which are not the reality, they are not true, they are simplification and simulations in a cartoonesque way of the reality. And of course, then we apply our own filters and narratives, how it's going to develop, whether it's good or bad, whether it's going to serve our purpose or not. So all these thoughts and concepts are blocking us from truly being present, being and witnessing the reality of now. In silence, in the silence of the mind, and in the appreciation of what is, without judgment of what should be, without judgment of what will be, without judgment of what could have been, without judgment of where else I should be, or why this that is here should not be there, or that what is not here should be here. All these thoughts, all these concepts, which are insulating us, blocking us from experiencing this moment now in its authenticity and without stories around it. And really, this is the key. This is what Papaji was referring to as the effortless, absolutely effortless presence. This is what the Tao Te King has been referring to for 2,500 years, the Wu Wei, the non-being, or rather non-efforting, which is being fully present without efforting anything that is not already there into existence, or blocking anything that is here. So subject stays empty as the sky and ocean and their creatures. So sky always empty, even though we may see clouds, but it's still the sky, whether it appears to have cloud or not. Let's also be wise and simply educated in understanding that what we describe as clouds filling the sky is simply a different concentration of water. There is always some water in the sky, and then there is more or less concentration of vapor and water in the sky. So why suddenly call it a full sky when there is a bit more water, and an empty sky when there's a bit less water? In the mix of what it's made of and contains, it actually always, as a full sky of planet Earth, always contains about roughly the same quantity of water. So we are simply applying too much value to a single point of view, and we are conceptualizing into existence absolute concepts, or the sky is full or it's empty, full of clouds or empty of clouds. We are creating these totally subjective and relative considerations into absolute, categoric, and serious matters. We are basically wasting our life extrapolating and speculating about and inventing concepts and trying to make reality fit our view of the world instead of simply taking it in. Thus, desirelessness as one of the keys to freedom. But let's not make the mistake of trying to not have desires, because that's a desire. The desire of desirelessness is maybe the last desire, but it's still a desire. Thus, actual desirelessness, thus freedom, thus when you have no agenda, desire, you are totally free of being in the present or using your legs to change your present environment. And there is no need for too much calculation in that. Simply a spontaneous, intuitive action in non-effort. It means I enjoy this, I suck it in, I sip it in, I let it seep in. Sucking it in, by the way, is already an effort. So let it seep into you if you enjoy this environment. If it's not bringing you that much joy, there will naturally be an impulse, a spontaneous impulse, to maneuver your body and change your surroundings, your environment. And it's a constantly changing thing anyway. Whether you move or not, it's constantly changing. Thus freedom, thus union with creation and subject. So this is the union in the nuptial chamber that Jesus was talking about. Chapter 13, the false identity of separation. All is one and one is whole. This is the key. If you are truly lucid and by grace, one day you will glimpse or even see it properly. There is only one thing that exists, that is the universe or God. You can call it whichever way you want, or the galaxy, the universe, the planet, depending on your scale of identification with the whole that is one, or the black hole at the center of every galaxy. All is one and one is whole, spelled H-O-L-E. This is my own experience. So hope and fear, success and failure, past and future, good and bad, are all hollow concepts generated by the subjective mind on the premise of separation from being and witnessing. So the basic premise of the activity of this mind is that this one is separate from the rest of the universe. So essentially there is the universe and you. It's absurd. At the very least, you should see yourself as part of the universe. And by grace, one day you may realize there is not more difference between you and the universe as there is a difference between a wave on the ocean and an ocean and the ocean itself. The wave is just an idea. What you are looking at is the ocean in motion. One's true self is the only subject of all objects in creation and life. There is only one thing, only one able to be and witness in truth and silence, to love now. There is only one thing or being able to love, truly, to truly love, to truly be in full acceptance, and that's the one self. Devoid of object or life, the mind's hollow concepts are ill-conceived. Devoid of sense, outside of now, they separate one from the reality of love. So Vian Den Groot is just hammering it down here. So really, we could stop here this whole cover of the Tao Te King. If you simply get that there is no need to conceptualize, simulate, narrate, prepare agendas and scenarios and decide what is good, what is bad, what you want, what you don't want, what you love, what you hate, what is black, what is white. If you simply switch off that infernal machine of the mind and simply allow it as a minimum usage tool to help you maintain this body in good state, together with your nervous system, it helps you detect when you damage your body or when you are performing an activity that damages your body. So a little bit of usage is healthy. Just like your GPS, sometimes it can be healthy. If you know where you're going, you can use the GPS to show you the shortest route. But you're not going to ask the GPS who to marry or where you should go. And you should not ask your mind any of these questions either. You can only ask your mind, how am I going to get where I want to go? Or, is my body in good condition? Is there something I should do to maintain my body? Or your nervous system can inform you of some pain. Maybe, the place that emits pain, the signal of pain, the information of pain, means it's a place you have to look and see what you can do, if there's anything to do to improve or to modify in your behavior. So this is the idea. And it's so simple, it's so easy, it's effortless. There is nothing to it, because there is nothing more easy than to stop doing something. When we find it difficult to stop doing something, it's simply because we have a decision, a conscious or unconscious decision that we have decided we are going to do it, or that we need it. But otherwise, to not do something, there is nothing easier than not doing something. So for example, stopping to smoke, stopping to drink. Objectively, there is nothing easier than to not do something. It's easier than doing it. However, we construct a fake reality, and we construct narratives and system of value and of beliefs and of compulsion that make us find easier to do something than to not do it. So let's look into that. But I'm not focusing here on the therapeutic side of things, to stop smoking or drinking or overeating or whatever. I'm really encouraging you to just let life seep into you, seep back into you. Stop blocking life away, blocking truth, the reality of what is. Let us accept it and let it seep in. Much love. Bye-bye.